In today's session, we are going to see the concepts called as roles concept in Fusion applications and the user management, functional setup manager. Okay, just we'll walk through these concepts. What exactly in the Fusion environment, how we can just what areas we have to understand. We'll see that. Okay, fine. First, we'll take the point called as Fusion role concept. Okay, roles concept in Fusion application. Other words we may call it as security in the Fusion. Fusion security concepts also you can call. Okay, fine. Okay, before we get into this concept, let's try to understand from EBS point of view what is the process we follow, how the things can be managed when you talk about security. Okay, so before this, okay, when you talk about EBS, basically we'll have a menu. Okay, again within that we can have sub menus, and within the sub menu we'll have a functions. To have access to entire main menu or sub menu or functions, what we have to do, we require the responsibility. We'll create the responsibility by selecting menu or sub menu or function. Okay, we can create our own menus or sub menus or functions. Okay, with custom menus we can create, simple point. So to access complete menu or sub menu or functions, we need responsibility in EBS. Without responsibility concept, we cannot access to any functionality or menu or sub menu in EBS environment. Okay, we create a responsibility. So after creating the responsibility, say for example, I created responsibility for accounts payables application. Just because of responsibility creation, we cannot record any transactions. Okay, so I'm not talking about system configuration. Other than that, if you want to work on any application through responsibility, so very basic things we have to assign primary ledger and operating unit in release-to environment if the application is going to be sub-ledger application. So if you take example of accounts payables, for accounts payables responsibility we have to assign primary ledger and we have to assign the operating unit so that user will be able to access the functionality and the user can record the business transaction through that responsibility. That means what we have to assign primary ledger and that depends. If it is general ledger, just primary ledger will be assigning based on the application responsibility. I'm just taking the example as payables responsibility. For payables responsibility, you have to assign very basic elements as basic components as primary ledger and operating unit. We have to assign to responsibility. Okay, then user can work on that particular responsibility. Now the same concept if you take into Fusion applications. So let me name it as EBS R12 security model. When you look into Fusion security, the Fusion security you can call as role based access control. In short you can call as RBAC, RBAC. Okay, Fusion security, nothing but roles concept. So Fusion security you can call as or back, nothing but role based access control. So to understand detail level, so in Fusion application we have different type of roles. The roles are job roles, duty roles, data roles, and abstract roles. Okay, we have four type of roles we have in the Fusion applications. Okay, so when you compare these roles with the EBS application, so job role is equal to menu. Job role equal to menu means for payables, receivables, for all the applications. However, in EBS, Oracle is providing the seeded menus, the same functionality in the Fusion they are providing as job roles. So the job role is equal to menu in EBS. And duty roles are equal to submenus when you compare with EBS. And data role, when you talk about data role, see here menu is equal to job role, submenus are equal to duty role. Okay, here also what we have, just within the submenu only will be having functions, within the duty role also will be having the functions. And here we have a responsibility in EBS, but in Fusion environment we don't have any concept called as responsibility. So here we have a combination, we have a responsibility and we are assigning primary ledger and operating unit to responsibility. So here when you talk about data role, here what happens is, say for example, okay, when you talk about data role, when you compare this data role with EBS, just you can understand that would be equal to this. Okay, the data role is equal to, okay, the primary ledger and OU assignment to response, means the combination of responsibility, primary ledger, OU, this kind of combination you can understand as a data role. And just we'll take simple example also here. Okay, but here abstract role is nothing but employee. It's a common entity in the system environment, so that employee we call as abstract role. See here job role, I'm taking example as accounts payable manager, job role. Okay, job role, okay, accounts payable manager. Duty role I can take within the accounts payables, what are the submenus we have, those we can take as a duty role. Just example, invoice entry duty or invoice process duty. Okay, data role, when you say data role, it's nothing but job role plus, okay, just for comparison, and if you want to compare with EBS, data role is equal to this combination, primary ledger or OU and responsibility. But the reality here in the Fusion application, the data role is nothing but job role plus your primary ledger or your BU. As per Fusion we know, like operating units we call as business units. Okay, so the data role, when you talk about data roles, the data role is equal to job role plus duty role, job role plus primary ledger or business unit. Just for example, job role is, if you take example job name as accounts payables manager, and if you take you are just running the operations in India, if you treat India as one of the business unit, now you just example could be India accounts payable manager. Okay, here I'm taking India as one of the BU, business unit. That means the business unit I'm assigning to this job role, this combination I'll be calling as data role. That means data role means there will be one role. Which role? It can be job role or duty role. The role will have give the grants permission to access India data. India here I am taking as a business unit, nothing but operating unit. And abstract role is nothing but employee contingent workers will treat as a abstract roles in the Fusion environment. Rest of this employee role, all other roles are specific to particular application. For payables, we have a payables manager, payables specialist, payables supervisor. These are the seeded roles we have. When you talk about receivable, general ledger, fixed assets, for each and every application, the application specific job roles we have. But when you talk about role call as employee, okay, irrespective of the application, you can use for any process wherever employee association is required in the business process. That is the reason this role is very common role. So that is the reason we are calling as abstract role. Okay, so we are calling as abstract role. So these are the few points we have to understand. Okay, when you talk about Fusion security or roles concept in the Fusion application. Okay, if you have any question on this, you can ask. Any questions on this?
Hi, Laxman. I have a question.
Yeah, please.
You mean assign primary ledger operating unit to responsibility means profile option?
I'm sorry.
Is that profile option?
Yeah, as per EBS, we'll be assigning the primary ledger or operating unit through profile option to responsibility.
Okay. So what about we have in responsibility, we have a request group, then menu.
Yeah.
So for the request group, what is replacing here?
The request group
In Fusion.
Yeah, Fusion, what happens is, so we don't have any separate concept called as request group in the Fusion. Nothing is replaced here based on the, can you mute yourself, please? I'll be answering for sure. Yep, great. So here there is no concept to replace the request group, whatever we have in the EBS. Here the concept is what are the roles you are assigning. What are the roles you are assigning for each role? Each role, it can be job role or duty role. Okay, for based on the roles, Oracle is giving access to reports. So they are giving access to reports. If you want to just restrict or if you want to give more reports access for particular job role in the Fusion environment, you have to customize the job level. You have to go and you can add the reports or you can remove the reports whatever available. That process we should do by creating the custom roles you can create. In that process you can do that. When you compare with EBS, there is no concept called as request group where you can group the reports or programs where you can give access to responsibility to user. Okay, that mapping Oracle is giving at the level of role level itself. Based on the role, you will be able to have access. In EBS, when you are creating the responsibility, yes, we have option without selecting the request group also you can create the responsibility so that user will be able to access to specific menus, right? So but here in this environment, so that concept you don't have. By default, based on the job role or duty role, whatever you are just using, accordingly will be getting access to reports. If you want to have your own requirement, accordingly you can customize the roles. Anyway, we'll see in our session how to customize that point also. We'll just come across. Any other questions? So any other questions on this RBAC role based access control concept? Fine. Seems to no questions. Good. Okay, if you have any doubt, please. So this is the one point we have to understand here. And moving on to other point, user management. How the users can be managed in the Fusion environment. So when you talk about users, before we talk about Fusion, let's talk about few points on EBS. For user creation and user management, everything can be done through system administrator. By using the system administrator, we can create the users and you can just set up any password policies, or you can assign responsibilities, and all these activities we can do in EBS. But when you talk about Fusion applications, the users can be created from two places. And before that, let's try to understand other point. Basically, we have two type of users. Okay, we have two type of users in Fusion environment. We have two type of users. Okay, the first one is implementation user. The second one is employee user. Okay, implementation user and employee user. Okay, so the implementation user you can create from IDM. The implementation user you can create from IDM. So for IDM, other name is OAM. Okay, the implementation users always you can create from IDM. When you talk about employee users you can create only from HCM, human capital management. IDM stands for identity manager. Okay, so basically we have two type of users. One is implementation user, the other user is employee user. Implementation user you can create from IDM, and employee user you will be able to create from HCM application. So what is the difference between these two? In EBS, what we do, we'll create the user, and to user will be assigning the employee. That is possible in EBS, but here that is not possible. If you create the user from IDM, the user is just user which you may use for implementation purpose. The IDM user cannot act as a employee user. The IDM user, whenever you create the IDM user, you cannot associate employee with IDM user. And when you are going to create the user from HCM, that user you can call as employee user. That means along with employee creation, when you are creating the employee, if any employee require access to the application, that credentials also you can set up at the time of employee creation time, that we call as employee user. In terms of process based permissions, employee user will be having more privileges. Okay, IDM user nothing but implementation user can perform all the activities. Okay, but there will be some limitations in terms of business process. But HCM user also can perform all the activities if required roles are assigned to employee user. But apart from that, the employee user will have all the privileges to work in the system environment specific processes. Say requisition creation or PO creation or supplier sites, this all can be created by employee user only. Implementation user cannot create the supplier sites or requisitions or purchase orders, and some other activities cannot be performed by implementation user. Okay, so now in our classes what we do, initially we'll be creating implementation user, then we'll start working on the implementation. Whenever we get the opportunity of creating the employee user, we'll go and create it. What is the opportunity here we are talking about? If you want to create the employee user in the system environment, it is a mandatory. Okay, it is a mandatory, we require legal entity and business unit. Okay, legal entity and business unit. Without specifying the legal entity and business unit, you cannot create the employee user. So in every implementation, first we'll create the implementation user only. We'll start working on that. With the help of implementation user, you can do all the configurations. Once these components are ready, okay, that means your primary ledger, business unit, legal entity, all these are ready, then you can start creating the employee definition, employee user definition. Okay, we'll see in the business process how this will, from where to create and how this will be functioning. But just as a simple point, okay, we have a two type of users. Okay, one is implementation user, other one is employee user. Implementation users can be created from only IDM. HCM, from HCM you can create the employee user. Okay, employee user will have all the process based permissions, where implementation user cannot have process based all the privileges. Certain privileges, yes, implementation user also will have, but not all compared to employee user privileges. So being implementation user, okay, you can create user from IDM. Simple point. If you create user from IDM, that we are calling as implementation user. If you create user from HCM, we are calling as employee user. Whatever the user you are creating from IDM, by using that user, you will be able to do the implementation related configuration. Even you can do the implementation based configuration, system configurations and implementation process you can do by using HCM user also. But only the permissions wise, there are some limitations, okay, that we'll see in the our course. Okay, where just those are matters all we'll be discussing. Done. Okay. So this is one point. I got one question. Does it mean that HCM has to be compulsory? No, no, not like that. Okay, HCM is not mandatory. That just the function is available. You can go with any solution. It can be finance or procurement or HCM, any finance or procurement or PPM. You may not take the license for HCM up to user creation, because user is common concept. Employee is very generic concept, basic concept in the system environment. You may not take license from the client, still you will be able to have a access to this employee related function. No license is required, just for users creation to do this. User cannot be a IDM user. User cannot be IDM user. What? So users you can create from IDM or HCM. I didn't, Rajesh, I didn't get your question. User cannot be a IDM user. Yeah, you are a manager. Okay, his employee maintained under LE. Okay, if you are the manager, we should not create you from IDM. If you are the employee in the organization, that need to be defined from HCM only. As an employee, while you are creating employee definition, we can give the login credentials, username, password and all, you can username and all you can set up over there. Okay, you can have both access. Yes, you are working as a employee. Being an employee, you will be able to work as implementation consultant. Employee user can act as a implementation consultant and employee user, but implementation user cannot act as a employee user. There are limitations, process based limitations. It's a matter from where we are creating the user. If you create user from HCM, that user can act as an employee user as well as implementation user. But if you create the user from IDM, that user can act as just implementation user, and partially that user can act as an employee user, but not core employee based transaction activities. Okay, this is the point we have to understand here. Fine. So in EBS, okay, in EBS, what we do? So we'll have a default seeded user. When we have access to fresh environment, we have a user called as sysadmin. Through sysadmin, you can access to the instance, then you can start doing the configuration. In the same way, in the Fusion environment also, there is some seeded user which Oracle is providing, that is nothing but FA admin. Okay, seeded user in Fusion environment is FA admin. FA stands for Fusion Applications. FA stands for Fusion Applications, Fusion Applications admin. Okay, with this user, you can log in Okay, and again, okay, we have a different users also for these job normally we'll use for applications, fusion applications, and we are discussing about IDM, Oracle Identity Manager. For Oracle Identity Manager we have a separate user also, okay, called as Excel sysadmin for IDM. Basically we'll have a two users, this FA admin, fusion applications admin user to access the applications, and this Excel sysadmin user will be using to access IDM where we can manage the users. Two we have, but always these two are not mandatory. If you have access to FA admin user access from with the same credentials, you can access IDM also. It's not mandatory you have to use a separate login for this. Okay, with this FA admin access you'll be able to access to IDM. Okay, you can ignore this user when you are working. That how we'll see in the system. Okay, fine. So fine, that. Now we'll see in the system how to create the user. Before we go and create the user, just we'll discuss few points. So we'll see first how to create the implementation user. That means we are going to create the user from IDM or say OAM. So we are going to create implementation user. Okay. If you create implementation user, the implementation user definitely require privileges where system will allow that user to do all the system related configuration. Generally the implementation user is nothing but implementation consultant, right? For implementation consultant, what are the privileges we require from system side, all privileges we have to provide to this user. So for that, in Fusion environment, if you want to give any access to any user or employee, the concept is roles. So we'll go and create the implementation user. For that user to give the permissions for system related configuration, full permissions, we have to assign the roles. Okay, when you create the implementation user, we have to assign the minimum roles called as, okay, say application implementation consultant. This is one of the role we have to assign. Along with this, we have to assign IT security manager, and these two roles are enough. Okay, application implementation consultant and IT security manager. Simple point. In EBS, if you want to start working with implementation, which responsibility you require? You require responsibility called as system administrator. If you have access to system administrator, just you can play with the system. You can create the responsibilities, you can create the menus, you can just based on that you can go ahead and you can create the multi or structure. Then you can start doing the configuration module specific. To facilitate the same access in the Fusion environment, we have to assign these two roles. These two roles are purely job roles. Okay, these are seeded roles. If you want to give if you want to give permissions to any user to get full access permissions on the system environment to do the implementation and module specific configuration, we have to assign these two roles to the user: application implementation consultant or IT security manager. Okay, these two roles are enough, but we are going to work on release 8 version. If we are going to work on release 8 version, we require one more role also called as system administrators. If you are going to work on release 8 version, this additional role also you have to assign. But if you are going to work on higher versions of 9 or 10 or other versions, so this role is not required. If you are going to work on 9 or 10 or any other versions, so these two roles are enough for implementation user. Nothing but which user you create from IDM, for that user just you can assign these two. That means you are giving full permissions. If the version is release 8 or lower versions, it's a mandatory. Along with these two roles, you have to assign system administrators roles also, so that the user will have a full permissions. Okay, this is the point here we have to understand. Okay, now just quickly we'll go to the system and we'll see, okay, how to create the user. Okay, we'll see how to create the implementation user. Fine. So which user you can use? FA admin. We can use the FA admin user and we can access to the instance. Okay, this is the Fusion login page. For our training purpose, just we customize it by adding this test. Otherwise, it will be very good looking screen. Okay, fine. Now just we'll log into this instance. Username is FA admin. The password always will get from our DBA, but here not required. Will be when we are going to practice on this environment, we'll provide separate user and password. You can access, okay, to instance with that information. Okay. Can you show the login? Can you show the login means? Abraham, what is the meaning of can you show the login? You are on login page itself, right? Are you able to see the screen? This is the home page. Okay. Yep. See, when you talk about R12, this is the home page. The same way Fusion, this is the home page. Okay, username is FA admin. Okay, Fusion. Yeah, fine. Yeah, it was already login. I signed out. Fine, done. So this is once you log in, this is a screen you will be able to see. This is a completely web page. Now what is our goal? Just we want to create the implementation user. Okay, we'll discuss all other points what you are able to see here. Now nothing is mandatory. So if you want to create the implementation user, what you can do is here we have a login name. Next to that we have some mark which will open the panel. You can click on the user. Just click on the user, it will open one panel. Here we have many tasks within that. Out of that, select task called as setup and maintenance. Okay, just select task called as setup and maintenance. So we'll be landing in this page. We'll discuss about this page detail level later. So once you log in, land in this page, what you can do is here you can search for one task. Here we can search for one task, because here any setup you want to do in the Fusion application task based. Okay, in EBS function based, the same function here they given as a task. So now our requirement is we want to create the IDM user. To create IDM user, we have to switch to IDM. To switch to IDM from this application environment, what we have to do is type task called as manage job roles. Okay, task name is manage job roles. Just type the name here, task name. After typing, just click on search. Just click on search. The task is getting displayed here, manage job roles. And if you want to go to that user creation page, nothing but IDM, you have to click on go to task icon. Okay, just very simple process we are following. What we are doing, after login, just click on the username, it will open the panel and select setup and maintenance task. Here you can search for the task, which task you want to perform. You want to create the user. To create the user, we have to go navigate to IDM. If you want to go to IDM, to switch to IDM, we have one task. The task name is manage job roles. By using the manage job roles task, okay, you can switch to IDM. So I selected this, then click on search. Here the same task you can see. Now just click on go to task icon. Now system will navigate us to IDM homepage. Click on this. Okay, this you can call as OAM or IDM, Identity Manager, or Oracle Identity Manager. It's taking some time. Just let me disconnect, cancel, and try again. Generally, it won't take this much time. Fine. Just let me close this and reopen this. Seems to there is some network issue. FA admin. Okay. Okay, there was some network issue. That is the reason it was not navigating. So now go to setup and maintenance and search for task called as manage job roles. Click on search, then click on go to task. Okay, normally it won't take this much time. Even our instance or other instance, even ours also working fine. But this time I can see there is some time delay in process. Okay, done. So Oracle Identity Manager self-service. So once you land at this page, click on this administration console hyperlink. Okay, first you have to navigate by using this task, then click on administration console hyperlink. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to create the user. Okay, seems to this user doesn't have those roles assigned. Let me do one thing. Just 1 second. Basically that other user somebody just unblocked, that is the reason I'm trying in that way. I'll just uncheck it, unblock it, and I'll do that. Somebody blocked that. It's fine. Here I can see it's okay. Oh, everything's fine. It's not locked at all. Fine, that seeded one is not working and doesn't have enough privileges. I'll just show you with a different user. Okay, no issues. Any user you can use, but those are the seeded users we have. But seems to somebody blocked that user, which is a seeded. Okay, but from there we are able to see as it's not blocked. Fine, no issues. Okay, we'll see the process. Anyway, we'll provide that credentials. I'm just logging with some existing user. Okay, click on user, click on setup and maintenance, and here search for the task called as manage job roles. Click on go to your task icon. Now from here we can create the user, right? To do that, just click on administration. Okay, now you can create the user. Okay, fine. To create the user, what you have to do is click on create user. Just click on create user. Okay, done. Okay, create user. Here you can just provide the basic information: the first name, middle name, last name, email ID, login information, who's the manager, etc. Sorry. So but out of this, we'll just walk through the mandatory fields. All rest of fields are not required. If I take some name, okay, here I'll take some username as Mayur. I can see some name as Mayur. Here username is just last name I'm taking as Mayur. And which user we are creating? IDM user. So even when you are creating the IDM users also, based on user design in the system, even IDM user also should belongs to specific organization. But reality, IDM user never become part of the organization. If the person is part of employee, will be creating from HCM. So for that reason, Oracle is providing some dummy value here. So this employee, this user is may not belongs to organization. In that case, to create the user, it's mandatory how to select the organization as per user definition process. So in that case, whatever the user you are creating from IDM, simply you have to select one seeded organization Oracle is providing. Okay. So here, just click on search. Here you can select the user called as user. It's nothing but organization name they given as accelerate users. Okay. Rajesh, we are getting some inputs from you. Please, I think those are coming by mistake. Some just random tests we are getting through chat box. Okay, no issues. Fine. So first, just I'm giving the last name of the user. Okay, and organization. It's a mandatory. Basically, this. Say for example, I'm creating implementation consultant. The implementation consultant may not belongs to client organization. So in that case, simply you can select the organization as a accelerate user. Yes, yes, correct, correct. Fine. Here, user type. You can select any user type. There is no functionality behind this selection. Anything you can select. I am selecting as a consultant. And provide user login. Okay. This is a username we are giving and password. When you are creating the password, there are some password policies which we have to follow when we are setting the password. You can look into that password policies by clicking on this icon. View password policy. Just click on this. So these are the password policies which talks about what are the points to be considered while you are setting the password. When you are practicing, you can go to this detail level. Okay, now I'm going to give the password for this user and confirm the password. Done. That's all. This is how simply you can create the user. Then click on save. Just click on save. The system will create the user, the name called as Mayur. So already we discussed, after creating the user, what we have to do to give the full permissions to work on the system as a implementation consultant. These three roles we have to assign to the user. Okay, we have to assign these three roles. Then user will be able to work on the system environment for system configuration with all the privileges. Okay, fine, done. User is created. System is giving the message, the user has been created successfully. Now next step is, after creating user, we have to assign the roles to the user. We have three roles to assign. Now we are going to assign these three roles. We'll see the process. How to assign. So here you can see the tab called as roles. Select this roles tab. Okay. Select this roles tab. Then click on assign. Okay. Then just click on assign. Okay. Just click on assign. Now here you have to search for those three roles. Okay. From here you can search and you can find. Then you can assign to the user. The first role is application implementation consultant. So just you can search as application, or else directly you can search here, application implementation consultant. Just short I given. Click on search. Here you can see the role called as application implementation consultant. Now select this role. How to select? Here just click here the arrow mark. Once you place the cursor, it will display the arrow mark. Then click on that. That will get selected. Okay. First search. Just give the name, role name. Then click on search. If with the same name, if any role is existed, it will display. Then by clicking here, you can select the role. Then click on add. So this role will be assigned to this user. The same way, other two roles also we have to assign to the user who is going to act as implementation consultant. Okay. In EBS, if consultant, as a consultant when we are working, okay, to our user we have to assign all the responsibilities, payables, receivables, all the responsibilities we have to assign, otherwise we cannot do that module specific configuration. But here it won't work in that way. If we give the access to these three roles, if we assign to this user, these roles will allow us to do the configuration for all the products which are available in the this instance. You don't need to assign application specific roles, okay, don't require separate privileges. So by default we'll be having access to all if you have this topmost job roles whatever we have, if those can be assigned to the user. Now again click on assign. Now we'll assign the role called as IT security manager. Search for IT security manager. Just drag little right, you can see the name IT security manager. Select, say add. Yes, for same user, you can see the user, same user. For one user we have to assign these three roles. Again click on assign, and other role name is system administrators role. Role name is system administrators. Select, just click on add. Okay. So in EBS, if you want to run submit any request, we'll go to, okay, view request and submit new request. There will be some navigation. By default we'll get that navigation. You may assign, may not assign the request at your responsibility, you'll have access to that. But in the Fusion environment, if you want to submit any report or any program or job, anything, you have to assign one role called as employee to user. Then only that user will be able to perform, okay, that running the report or submitting the any request or process. Okay, without assigning the role called as employee, that user cannot perform those activities. For that reason, what I'll do is I'll go and assign the employee role also to this user. Even this user is not a organization employee, just to have a access to that kind of report submission or program submission function, I'm going to assign employee role here. Anyway, when we are working, I'll show you, because of that employee role what we'll be able to access, we'll see. But simple point now we are discussing, if you assign the role call as employee to this user will be able to run the reports. Otherwise there won't be any access to this user to submit any reports. So just I'm going to assign one more basic role called as nothing but abstract role called as common. For every user you have to assign that. Okay, just click on assign and search for the role called as employee. Now select and click on add. Okay, so what are the basic roles we have to assign to this user? All we assigned here. Done. Fine. Now we can sign out from the current user and we can log into the instance as a with a username called as Mayur. Okay, so just sign out from the current user, sign out from IDM and sign out from application. Done. Now just sign into the system as user called as Mayur. Just provide password whatever you set. Now system will ask us to reset the password. Sorry. I just disturbed this. So I'm just logging as a sign in. Now we have to reset the password. So what is the old password we given that you can enter? New password, and here you can see all the password policies. What are the policies you have to follow when you are setting the password? Done. Now here we have few questions which you have to answer. If you have any challenge, okay, if you have any challenge, if any case like you are not able to log into the instance, it's basically in EBS what we do. If user is not able to log into the instance, just will report to the sysadmin or DBA who is responsible to maintain the users. They'll reset the password, but in the future environment we don't need to do in that way. So you can set some security questions here and you can answer anytime if you forget the password or if it's not working, you can reset password yourself. Okay, you don't need to send any request to anyone. You can provide these security based questions, password security based questions, so that you will be able to reset our password if any issue with the passwords. You may forget or if you may want to reset, all these activities can be done by users only. The question one. So just name, just you can answer, just you can type something. I'm writing the name only. What is your pet name? Just say pet and birth. Okay, just answer these questions with the relevant test. Okay, then click on submit. Now this user will be ready to use. Okay, so user is created. Once implementation user is ready, you can start working on the implementation. If you want to do the implementation, these points we have to understand. Okay, the functional setup manager. Anyway, this user is done already. Just let me refresh it. Okay, user is ready. Okay, user Mayur. Okay, done. User is created. Once user is ready, what we have to do? We have to start working on functional setup manager. Okay, functional setup manager. Sorry. Okay, functional setup manager. So with the functional setup manager, okay, what we can do is, and just before that let me give you some terminology related to function setup manager. So we have a applications called as, say, financials. When you take financials, within the financials what we have, so GL, AP, ER, CM, FA, so on. Okay, this is how we have application. When you say financials, within that we have these different applications. Okay, when you say procurement, within procurement we have purchasing as one application, and self-service procurement, sourcing, supplier portal. Okay, so and this is how we have few applications. Okay, so here when you say financials, financial we call as, okay, the financial family, this comes under one family. Procurement comes under one family of the application products. But in fusion environment, okay, whatever you just see here, financials or procurement or HCM or PPM, okay, all we call as offerings. Financials we call as one offering. The procurement you call as offering. And if you have a product family called as PPM, project portfolio management, that we call as offering. Okay, if you say HCM, HCM is one of the offering. So this is a term we'll be using in the fusion environment. Okay, so offering, financial is one offering, procurement is another offering, PPM, HCM all are different offerings. Okay, if financials, any product family, if you are calling as offering, within that what are the modules, applications, whatever we have, what we call in the fusion application. These applications here in the fusion we call as options. This we call as options. That means in financial offering, here we have 5 options. The same way under procurement offering we have these 4 options. The same way under PPM offering there will be specific options. In the same way for HCM also there will be some options. Okay, so we have offerings, within offerings we have options. Within options, whatever we have functionalities, those we call as futures only here. The same as EBS, there's no big difference in that. Here we call as same as futures. There we call as functions or futures. Here we call as futures. Okay, this is the terminology we have to understand. So we have offerings, within offerings we have options. Okay, within options we'll have a futures. So in EBS environment, okay, in EBS environment, if you are going to do any implementation, what you have to do is, the project manager will be managing, just maintaining the all project related information in the separate tools or separate documentation. Okay, there is no option in the system environment where they can manage the project related basic information. I'm not talking about projects, Oracle projects or Oracle project accounting or other applications. For any kind of implementation, so very basic project related monitoring related information we cannot maintain in EBS. So but in the fusion applications, okay, we have a concept called as functional setup manager. By using the functional setup manager you can do all the configurations. By using the functional setup manager you can do the system configuration. In EBS we have one concept called as functional, uh, this we have accounting setup manager, ASM. In GL we have ASM, accounting setup manager. Through ASM what we can do, we can do the multiple definitions. From ASM you can create the primary ledger, reporting ledger, secondary ledger, and you can do other definitions like legal entities creations, and even business groups, operating units also you will be able to create from the same place. And you can do that intercompany related setups and sequencing related configuration, all you can do from ASM. Okay, so that within ASM, okay, application setup manager, accounting setup manager, by using accounting setup manager, we can do the setup. Those setups are very limited. If I want to do the payable setups, I cannot do from ASM in EBS. Similar to ASM, we have a function future application product called as functional setup manager, FSM. By using FSM, you can do all the system configuration from one place. From ASM, you can do the GL, APR, CM, FA, or any offering or any option related configurations can be done from system from functional setup manager. This is a centralized place which facilitate system configuration, okay, in the Fusion environment. And in the Fusion, if you want to do any implementation, if you are going to do the implementation, first you have to create the project. You have to create the project. Before creating the project, so based on the scope of the project, okay, you have to enable the offerings. Okay, let me just come one by one point here. So if you are going to do any implementation Fusion environment, what we have to do is, based on the project scope, we have to enable the offerings and options. Okay, within the options, the futures also will be able to enable. Say we are going to do the implementation for financials, only GL, AP and AR. In Fusion environment, these you have to enable. Now you have to go and enable the offering. You have to enable the offerings and options. Offerings are nothing but the product family, options are nothing but applications. The simple point here, in EBS, if you want to use any currency, you have to enable the currency. If you don't enable the currency at the time of primary ledger creation, you don't find the currency. So it's a mandatory you have to enable currency if you want to use as a part of primary ledger. In the same way, if you want to do the implementation, if you want to implement any offering or options, it's a mandatory you have to enable in Fusion environment. Okay, first we have to enable the offerings and options which are part of our project scope. Once those are enabled, by selecting those offerings and options, you have to create the implementation project. You have to create the implementation project. Okay, what are based on the project scope, you have to enable the offerings and options. Then you can create the implementation project. Once you create the implementation project, automatically system will create the task list. Simple. What is the meaning of task list? Okay, system will generate automatically. This is not manual activity. Once you create the project, it will create. So what is the meaning of task list? Say for example, I selected an offering called as financials, and within that I selected these three options, or I'll say I selected only option called as AP. By selecting this financial offering under option called as AP, if I create any implementation project, automatically system will create the task list. Task in the list is nothing but system will create the tasks, which tasks are required to complete the payables configuration. One of the task name is payment term. Other task name is, you can just understand based with the reference of EBS, financial options, payable options. Here slightly they change the naming convention, that will be seeing just when you are working on this. So that's how system will create. Based on offerings and options, system will auto generate the task list, which task we have to perform to complete the respective options or offering related system configuration. Okay, once it is done, while you are creating the project you can assign to the person, the project manager you can assign. Okay, I got one question. Task will vary from implementation to implementation. Tasks will vary from implementation to implementation. That will be decided based on which offerings and options you are selecting. System will generate all. Based on the project, you will start using those as per the business requirement. For every project, I am just going to create 10 projects for financials. Okay, for 10 projects, system will create same task list. Based on the business requirement, whether you have to do that configuration or not, you have to take the decision. Okay, task list is common. Okay, based on requirement you will be doing the setups, that's it. Okay, so system will create the task list. Now in the project, how many resources are working, you can assign the specific offering or options or particular task to particular team member. Okay, Fine. Does it mean that it will be? Is it? Yes. See here. That's what. Just whatever the you are assigning, according it will generate. Just it will generate based on your usage. You will be using that. That is a default function Oracle given. It's not like you cannot go and select each and every task which you require. It will generate and you can use based on that usage only. You'll be using the system. But always those options will be available over there. Yes. 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 Business is decided by fusion. No, see, don't understand in that way. So business is decided by fusion, not. Okay, see, based on the business requirement, they'll be using the fusion application. Okay, based on the business requirement, they'll be using when they are going to use what are the solutions are available from the application. When you create the project, system will be creating as a task list. Say system created 50 task list for payables, say 50 or 50 futures. In that case, how many you are going to implement for your client? For that only you will be doing the configuration. Rest of things just those will be lying in the project itself. You are not going to touch at all. That's it. You will see, you will understand more detail. Okay, fine. So system will create the task list. Now what we can do is you can assign complete, offering, or specific options or particular tasks to team members. Okay, so once task list is created, okay, within that what are the offerings or options or tasks you have, those you can assign to team member. And once team members start working on the project, they can update the task, update the status, sorry, they can update the status. Say for example, I assigned option to one of the consultant to for payables. Then once they start working on the payables, they can set the status. Okay, work in progress, they can set the status. Within the payables, if they complete 10 setups, immediately they can mark against the task as a completed, so that the project manager easily can monitor, they can know the status of the project, how many tasks need to be completed, how many tasks are completed, what is the percentage of configurations complete. All manager will be able to have a great visibility within our system environment only. Okay, here we can first, we have in the functional setup manager, we have to enable the offering based on the project scope, and we'll create the project. System will auto generate the task list. When you are creating the implementation project, this project you can assign to the respective person who is going to handle this project. Okay, maybe project manager or somebody. And system will create task list. Then specific offering means, offering is nothing but financials is one offering, procurement is another offering, HCM is another offering. Specific offering or particular options, or within the options what are the tasks we have, those you can assign to the team member. When team members will start working on the project, okay, whenever they start working on that, based on their activities, tasks, whatever the activities they are doing, they'll be able to update the same task status, so that we'll be able to have a visibility on the entire project, how many tasks are there, how many completed, and the entire progress will be able to see. And once that is done, you can start doing the configuration. You'll be assigning the task, then you'll be start doing the system configuration. Okay, you can do the system configuration. Okay, and you can track the status, track project status. And within the functional setup manager itself, we have a function called as rapid implementation. Means here we have a spreadsheets. So by using that spreadsheets, you can just enter the data directly. You can load that information to the system. That information may be your primary ledgers or just business units, or any chart of account related information, or legal entries, anything. We have certain only specific areas only we have those spreadsheets. That also we'll see. But this is a very primary function, is part of this functional setup manager. The functional setup manager, the first thing, if you are going to start creating the implementation project, it's mandatory you have to enable. Otherwise, when you are going to create the project, you have to select those offerings and options. If you don't enable, you cannot select. By selecting the offerings and options, we'll create the project, then automatically system will create the task list. So one system will create those offerings or options or tasks we can assign to the team member. Then the team members will start configuring the system. Based on the task progress, they'll be updating the status against the tasks or offering or options what they are responsible. Then from here we can do the rapid implementations also. This and all we can do from the functional setup manager environment. Okay, so these are the points to understand from these three areas whatever we plan for today. So fusion security model, role based access control. The other one is user management. The third option is functional setup manager. Okay, in the next session we'll see how to just enable the offering, how to create the project. We'll see how system will create the automatic task list and how to assign the relevant specific offering or options to the team members. We'll start with the system configuration. We can just see the how to update the status, etc. And even later we'll go through rapid implementation. Once we go with the manual this implementation process, I'll show you that what are the spreadsheets we have, how to load, how to input the data, how to load into the system. I'll be showing. So if you have any questions on today's session, you can ask me. It could be functional setup manager or user management. I think earlier this we had some questions and discussed.
Yeah, Laxman, I have a question.
Yeah.
Say you created a user. Yeah. And you assign implementation, application implementation, IT security, sysadmin, and correct, employee access to the particular user to access all the module in financial, right?
Not only for financials, any application,
okay,
any
all
offering,
the enterprise,
okay, all offerings.
Right. Yeah. But I wanted to restrict some consultant to access particular modules.
Okay.
Okay. Say for example, I wanted to give access only for particular consultant to do AP configuration or particular consultant to do AR configuration.
Okay. That what you have to do.
So what
yeah, I got your point. For that, what you have to do is you will be creating the project and you will be assigning those AP for one consultant AR to another consultant. Manually, you should. Can you mute yourself, please? Yep, thanks. So you have to assign to these consultants the payables to one consultant, receivables to another consultant. So since you are giving the permission to them to work on the implementation project, definitely they'll be having access to entire area, but they'll be able to see, they'll be able to access, but manually you have to tell them where they should not do the configuration in the respective area. If they do any setup, another task, automatically system will be tracking the name. That setup is done by which consultant, system will be tracking. That's how you can find it, but you cannot limit the access to the particular users where they should not access to specific area. Because if any consultant is going to work on any offering or any options in the system environment, these are the roles need to be assigned. There are no specific roles which role will give the access to access only payables or only receivables or other application. That should be done through manual process. And here to system tracking purpose, just you can assign the payables to one and receivables another. If anybody is doing setups for other areas of the configuration, system will be tracking. That's how you can find out. Manually you have to just guide them. There is no control in the system.
Yeah, but tracking doesn't help. After doing something, some setup is wrong, but you can't correct it that time.
I agree with you, but that's how Oracle given. We don't have that.
See, suppose we are giving L to support people, setup menu, we restrict, exclude menu, we exclude setup option. Okay, so they can't do any setup. So the same way, see, all that in R12 we are controlling by giving responsibility.
One second. Here, I think you are understanding in the different way. I'm talking about only consultant area. I'm not talking about business user. For business users, we have separate process, which will be managed application related roles. These are different roles. This enterprise roles which will allow the consultants. When you say you don't want to allow for specific functions, functions are not at all part of this. Functions are not at all part of this. These are all only system. When you look into the EBS, if you take payables responsibility, can you mute yourself, please? Okay. If you take payables application, payables responsibility, within the payables responsibility, we'll be having two category of the functions. Few functions which will allow us to work on the business process, few functions which allows us to do the system configuration. Now from functional setup manager, we will be having access to only configuration related part. Through functional setup manager, you cannot perform any business transaction. For business transaction, we have separate process. There you can set up as per the business requirement. If you don't want to allow, as you are discussing, as you are talking about, we want to restrict particular function from menu. You can customize, you can include, exclude, all those things we can do. Yes, that also we can do here, but not in the functional setup manager environment. Always functional setup manager environment will be giving the access to consultants who are just going to do the configuration, not at all process. When we are giving access to the user, we never assign these roles. For user, roles are totally different. If somebody is going to work on payables, invoicing process, and payment process, roles are different. We never give this implementation consultant or other roles, whatever we assign to the current user. That's how it works.
Okay, so you can't restrict module wise as well, right?
Consultants, you cannot restrict module wise. Just only you can give the note to them. They are responsible for what. Frankly speaking, even normal implementations also, if there is a finance consultant, they never touch the setups of SCM. They won't show interest. Nobody. Everybody will be just doing their work. So that manually we have to handle that. But system side, no control.
Yeah, but generally, see, when you're working, you won't get a HCM. You can't create a employee in HCM for financial user. You can't do it.
No. See,
I mean, basic setup there, but basics. Okay, when you're doing implementation, when you're coming to the testing stage, you won't give all the access to testers as well.
I'm sorry, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Tester's role is different and a consultant role. See, testers, what they'll be testing, functionality they'll be testing, right? They never do this configuration. That part is totally different. Yeah. I'm talking. Testing
no,
means
during implementation, I'm saying unit testing. During implementation, unit testing. I'm not talking about UAT.
Okay, unit testing, what users will be doing?
I mean, SIT.
What
not user, like no. Consultant. When you are doing implementation in system, I mean, SIT in before coming into UAT, you do dev environment and SIT environment. In that case, you don't want other.
Simple point here. I want to understand from you. You are talking about system configuration or transaction process. It can be testing or anything. Are you talking about system configuration or business process related testing or something else?
System configuration, but the people can access all the module, can do some, I mean, can try something, or without their knowledge they do something.
No. Listen.
End up with doing.
Listen. When you give access to the system configuration, that user cannot perform any business transaction. Only configuration related.
But you assign employee access to the.
No. Because of that, they don't get access. For that, we have a separate roles. We'll see in the upcoming sessions. That is just to run some requests. That's all. We are not giving any access to any kind of function where user can perform some activities.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Laxman, it's me, Shiva.
Yeah, Shiva, please.
I couldn't catch up today's session. Is there any possibility that we will schedule the session any earlier or little late? Because I am in US time zone.
Okay.
I might be in meetings from little morning. So I've been in meetings from 9 till I'm only able to hear from functional SCM, that to a last part.
Yeah, I can understand, but here these timings we fixed based on most other people convenience, because most other people are attending from India, so the people has to start from office, they have to reach home, and once they get ready and all, it would be definitely minimum should be 8. On that base we planned it. Yes, I agree, just whatever you're telling, but the thing is most other people they prefer to have at 8 only. Even we spoke to the people saying that if we are going to start at 7 means they said we cannot join and will be the way back to home and all. That's what we hear from the people. So this time we cannot change. This is only the possibility we have from our side. And if with these timings, if you find a bit difficult, you can join in the weekend sessions. From tomorrow we are going to start weekend sessions. that we are starting at 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. IST, 11 to 1.
Okay.
But that will be
I'll
just,
try to be in this.
yeah.
I'll try to be in this session only. But
Okay.
I'm sorry, folks. It's offline for your discussion. Just want to let you know. I'm fine with these timings, but like I have a couple of meetings on weekdays from 2 of the days, especially.
Okay.
One is Wednesday and one is Friday, and these are the 2 days which are like little packed for me. Other than that, I'm totally fine with it.
Okay. But unfortunately, we don't have any other scope. Otherwise, we could get adjusted with timings.
Okay.
So
That's fine. No worries.
yeah.
Thanks. And
Yeah. Fine. Great. And I have one question here from Satya. Do people use BR100 in Fusion? See, it's all about what implementation methodology that we want to use. Okay, if you are going to use that AIM methodology, yes, you can still go ahead with the BR100. And if you are going to use OEM methodology, you can go with the OEM based documentation. But you can see in the market, most of these Fusion implementations takes place with the OEM, since that is the latest. It's not the latest, it came into the market long back, and which where AIM, which we treat as outdated. Or else you may not use AIM and OEM. You may go with your own implementation approach. Nobody will stop you. If client is okay, you can do that. That also companies are doing. Any questions from others? Okay. If no questions means we can wind up the session for today, and we'll connect on Monday. And I'll be sharing the session after maybe a bit later. After 2 hours, I'll be sharing the same recorded session to all of you. Okay. If you have any questions, please ping me or just directly you can talk to me or this go to meeting. Any questions? No. Fine. We'll connect on Monday. Thanks for joining this session. See you on Monday. And I have one question. Do you have Oracle student guide for Fusion? Yes, we have. Within the instance level, we have enough documentation. Other point is within the instance itself, we have enough help repositories. So good stuff they just kept in the Fusion instance itself.
Laxman, do you have any direct number that we can reach you, or the whatever the number
Yes,
which is on the site is the number?
if you want to connect me, just you can reach me out on this number. I'm just typing here. Okay, just I shared in the chat window. You can make a note of that.
Yeah, I will do that. Sure. Thanks, Laxman.
Yeah, thank you. I have one question here. When do you give server access? Because there are some formalities need to be completed, the fee and all. Then we'll be getting the server access. Another question inbuilt in the system. Yeah, help repositories and all inbuilt in the system, not that guides and all what we are talking. Those are available in Oracle websites. The student guides are not part of this instance itself, but the help repositories and all inbuilt in the system as EBS. EBS we have a basic help repository we have, but here it's a just they kept good stuff within the Fusion. Any other questions? Well, I'll be taking all the sessions. Okay, I'll be taking all the sessions. I'm not going to hand over these sessions to anyone. I'll be taking all the classes. Yep. It's a good question. Okay, I'll be taking all the questions. Awesome. I'm sorry, all the sessions. Fine. Any other questions? Okay, fine. Seems to no questions. Okay. So we'll connect on Monday. Okay, I'll be sending this session recorded video after 2 hours. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thanks, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Good night.